They're coming by with our materials. I think there's plenty for everybody that wants one.
Yes.
And I'll explain as we go through here what these are. Again, it would be helpful for you to be in both of these next sessions because we're going to do this in over two.
Jim, I don't need to fill one out. You just describe the church I'm going to do.
Okay, well, I bet at some point maybe you'll need this. So there's a bunch of pages, and it's a little bit complicated. I think we got enough. I hope. We run out? Are those the last ones? Here's one more. Let me go back and see if I've got more in my... Are we short? That's all I've got. Did we get short? Because I can send. If somebody wants to do the evaluation, you can just write the numbers down. I mean, it'll help to have the paperwork, but you can do it without the paperwork. But all right, we're going to quickly. Let me look here. What time? These go to 2:30? Yeah, okay. All right, we're going to look at Romans chapter 12. This is on my second trip to California, and today at lunch, I can mark down when I write my book the first time I've ever had an enchilada. First one today. And they were good. I thought it was lasagna. Looks like lasagna, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Has the same concept. But anyway, it's good. Romans chapter 12 and verse 3 says, "For I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. For as we have many members in one body, and all members have not the same office, so we, being many, are one body in Christ, and every one member one of another." So the church, here's the concept of this whole deal. The church in the Bible, in some places, is compared to a building. In other scriptures in the Word of God, the church is compared to a bride. And in other scriptures, such as the one we've just read in Romans chapter 12, the church is looked at and symbolized as a body. For the sake of this next couple hours, we are looking at the church as a body. And here's the concept. Every body, every physical body, needs to go to the doctor from time to time. Again, audience participation time. Can you give me some reasons that folks would go to the doctor for a physical exam? All right, that is probably the most popular one, especially for men. How many know that men, as a rule, don't like to go to the doctor? If I feel good, I don't want to go to the doctor because I'm afraid he's going to find something that's not good. And I feel fine. So men a lot of times don't go to the doctor unless there's something wrong. If there's something wrong and you know you are sick, and if it's me, it's got to be, I'm really feeling bad if I'm going to go to the doctor. So sometimes it is because you are sick and you know it. All right? Other reasons why you would go to the doctor for a physical. That's what I've got in my notes, exactly that word, preventive maintenance. So in other words, there's nothing wrong that I know of. I feel fine. But I'm going to go because there may be something that I don't know about that's going on. And I want to, cut it off at the pass if there's something that may happen. All right, some other reasons. All right, sometimes we are made to go. It may be work. It may be our spouse. It may be the insurance company. You've applied for life insurance or health insurance. They want a complete physical. So these are a lot of reasons. There are different reasons why people go, but whatever the reason, it is always important. We would all agree that it is important from time to time on a regular basis that you take your physical body to the doctor for a complete physical. And I believe that it is also important for the church to do the same. And by the way, some people think that this is just for churches that are, just can't keep their doors open and are really struggling. I'd say not only is that not true, it is good for every church to examine themselves. It is better to do it on the healthier side. Because since I've been in this job, most of the time I get the patient, it's on life support, they're ready to pull the plug, and they say, okay, do something with it. Well, maybe it would have been better had we done this when the patient had a little bit more of a fighting chance. Okay? So I salute, the largest on Roll Call Sunday, they still do Roll Call Sunday in Alabama. The church with the largest attendance in Alabama. That was one of the 6 churches I did this in on an individual basis last year. I saluted them for doing that. I salute anybody that sits in here. I salute you. You could have went and heard something else, and because nobody likes to do this. Nobody likes to examine it. It's not fun to pick apart what you're doing and what you could do better. But how many know all of us, no matter what kind of church we attend or pastor or work in, we could all do better somewhere, something. So it's just a healthy thing to do on a regular basis. So that's what this is about. And that is what we are fixing to do. Now, so here, to make this easier, this first page, because we always refer back to it, I'm going to give you everything on that first page so you can put it aside. I just want you to have this because it's going to take the next 2 hours to go through this. And this is something normally we do in about at least 4 sessions. So understand, we're going to kind of rush through it because I wanted to get the foundation this morning on everything we did, kind of get as much as we could in. So if everything in your packet is in order, and it should be, it may not be, but it should be. The first thing you should have should be, it should say research, Romans 12, 3-5, biblical foundation at the top. Okay? If that's not the first thing, find that page. And I'm going to give you everything on this page so we can put it aside. Okay? Well, here's what we're going to do in this assessment. First of all, number one, we're going to do an assessment of the patient. Or in parentheses, an examination. When you have a physical, that's what happens. You are assessed. You're going to have an examination. Now, what is the first thing that the doctor, before he ever looks at you, looks in your mouth, looks in your ears, what's he going to want? Health history. That's A. A health history. That's what we're going to do that first. We're going to do 50 areas is what we're going to go through real quickly in 5 different sections. First one is health history, and I'll explain that more when we get to it. B, after health history, before he runs any tests or anything, he's going to do a visual examination of the patient. A B is a visual examination. And then comes C, the physical examination. So we're going to do 10 areas in the visual exam. That's going to be major section number 2. And then there's 3 major sections of 10 points each in the physical examination. Number 1, we're going to look at the head of the body. Or in parentheses, that's leadership. Number 2, we're going to look at the heart of the church. That is the worship service. The heartbeat of every church. Number 3, we're going to look at the hands of the church. That's stewardship, or the ministry of the church. Ministry and outreach. What we are doing and giving back out of what God has given us. So, number 1, assessment of patient or examination. A, health history. B, visual examination. C, a physical examination, which will include, number 1, the head, leadership, heart, worship, hands, stewardship. After we do that, number 2, from that we will develop a plan of action. or in parentheses, that's education. We go from examination to education, a plan of action. And then thirdly, we will administer the medicine. That's execution. Now, don't get that wrong. We don't want anybody to die in your church going through this. Execution means we're going to execute the plan that we come up with. So that's the gist of everything we're going through. You got all that, so we don't, instead of going back and forth, you can put that aside. Assessment of the patient, examination, health history, visual examination, physical examination, head, heart, hands, leadership, worship, stewardship. Develop a plan of action, that's education. Administer the medicine, that's execution. Okay, everybody got that? Need anything repeated? Okay. So, that starts with the assessment of the patient. Okay? So the next page should be case history, patient background. You got that one? Has a chart in the right-hand corner, picture of a chart. The context, case history, patient background. So in the examination, as we said, before anything is done, the first thing that the doctor is going to want to do, before you even come into the office to be seen, he's going to want a health history. Now, the question I'm going to ask you now for audience participation is, why would he want to waste the time with a health history? Family history, all of that. Why would he do that? Wow, you're way ahead of this thing. You're way ahead of me. You've seen that coming, didn't you? You got to know in order to go where you're going, you got to know your past. Now, what does that mean when you're at the doctor? I mean, I don't need to know, my grandmother had cancer. Why do you want to know that? I mean, I'm here, now. I don't have cancer. What does that matter? Why? Why does that matter to the doctor? You may be predisposed. You may have something in your genes. No, listen, make no mistake about it. Your past does affect your present and your future. Is that the way in the church? Oh, yes, it is. You, pastor, whether you realize it or not, you, for the bad or the good, are paying the price for the guy that came before you, to the bad or the good. If your people don't trust you, it may be because they had a Fruit Loop as pastor the last one. If they feel beaten down, maybe because they had a dictator that whipped them from the pulpit and it was unfair. If they love you and are supporting you, maybe because somebody laid the groundwork, you're reaping what you did not sow, of a faithful man of God that laid the groundwork. For the good or the bad, we know it. Listen, you've been in church very long. Let's get real here. I'm telling the truth in church in California. We know that what happened in the past in your church is affecting your church now, and it will affect the future. We just don't want to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it today. Oh, yes. I'm boldly going where no man has ever went before, and I have no fear. And I could tell you story after story. I mean, I go into these places clueless. Like here, I don't know. I don't know what your history is. I have no idea. Man, some of this stuff really hits home. Boy, it can get really interesting. So a health history. That's where we're going to start. That's what you start in a doctor. It's no different. Now, here's how this works. Case history. You're going to have 5 pages with 10 numbers on it. 10 different things. Total of 50 things. And beside each one of those, as we go through this, I'm going to ask you to give a number, to put a number down. You are doing the assessment. I would not be arrogant enough I wouldn't have the arrogance to come in your church in one weekend and then try to analyze every detail of your church. I mean, you know your church. If you will be honest in doing this. And what I find, and again, how many pastors do we have here? How many pastors? Full-time? Okay, so that's a majority. Deacons, we got any deacons here? Not a one in the house. I felt the freedom of the Spirit here. I just did. Just kidding. Just a little Free Will Baptist humor. I mean, I was kidding. I was talking to a guy last week, and I said, how you doing? The preacher said, bad. He said, I got a staph infection. I said, a staph infection? Then your leg? He said, no, it's on my board. I got 2 deacons and a treasurer. It's driving me crazy. It's staph, S-T-A-F. So anyway, what I find when doing this in a church setting, usually it'll be the leadership, the key leaders that'll come in and do this. Maybe it's opened up to the whole church. Usually the pastor's numbers on these are lower than the average church member, because the pastor really has the heartbeat and really sees where he wants it to go and what it could be, and he has a greater burden for that. So most of the time I find the average church member, they don't want to think bad of their church. You know, I had a lady say, I like my little church. Okay, now think about what you just said. I'm not saying that every church needs to be 300 people. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. But it's hopefully a spiritual church will be a mature, growing church, and it will grow in numbers. Okay. Somebody says, well, all you care about is numbers. No. But Jesus cared about people, and people are numbers. Right. And the more people we reach, that's more people for Christ. So obviously we're trying to grow spiritually, and we're trying to grow the numbers. But I just thought that was telling. I like my little church. And some people do. They would never say it. But the attitude of what I taught this morning, I mean, that's the way they're living out. We just want to keep it small and keep it, R4 and no more. But so I'm going to ask you 50 times over the next 2 hours to give a number between 1 and 10. Obviously, 1, 2, 3 would be low and bad. 7, 8, 9, 10 would be good. Now, there's going to be several of these numbers where it may not apply directly to your church. In other words, you don't really know, maybe in relation to staff that you don't have. What I'm going to ask you to do in those places is put a median number, maybe a 5 or 6, 7 in there, something in the middle. Because this will not work. The final analysis will not work if you don't have a number in every one of those 50 slots. So I'm asking in a couple areas where you really don't have an opinion, don't just put don't know or doesn't apply. Put a median number somewhere in 6, maybe a 6 or 5, 6, 7. That'll help you, because what you're going to do, we're going to take 50, we're going to add all 50 up. I'm going to give you a formula, and you're going to get a number between 1 and 10, and then I'm going to tell you what that number means about the health of your church, and then we're going to, okay. And again, we're going to try to do this in a short amount of time. So on each of these lines on this page, we're working through 10 numbers right now between 1 and 10. And then I'm going to have you add those numbers at the bottom of the page. And at the total at the bottom, you will have a number between 10 and 100 on this page. And you're going to put that one aside, and then we're going to do it 4 more times. Okay? And again, a number may be bad, and it may be low, and it may be something completely out of your control. Don't worry about that. It is just we're painting a total picture here, okay? Because all of these things have an effect, and what we're going to do at the end, out of those 5 sections, you're going to be able to look and see which page is the lowest numbers and where the weaknesses are in your church. What are the things that you have to work on, if we're honest in this process. All right, number 1, in the history of the patient, because we know that the past affects the present and the future, I want you to think about your church's founding. When you think back in the history of your church, and this may be not as relevant the older your church is, but in any event, what were the circumstances surrounding your church's founding? In other words, if your church was founded out of revival, I mean, there was just a revival came through, people were getting saved, and they got together, and they needed a good local church, and they just planted a church, and somebody got a burden to go there and plant a church, that would be a high number. But did it start out of a rebellion? Was there a church split down the road and a few people got mad? And I'm not saying that church is cursed and doomed because of that. I'm just asking questions. If the founding of your church was out of confusion or out of anger or out of a split, then the number would be obviously lower. So I'm asking, was it a revival or a rebellion or someplace in between? Generally, when you think about it, where the circumstance is good, positive, or negative in relation. Of course, the joke is, what Free Will Baptists do, we get mad, and that's not as much out here. But like a state like North Carolina, where there's a church on every corner, they say, people down there, they don't like it down there, they get mad, they split, and they go down the street and start a church, and they usually call it peace or unity or something, something they don't have at all, but just a little Free Will Baptist humor there. So anyway, a number between 1 and 10, your church is fine. Matter of fact, I did this assessment in the church. It started out of a split. I told that joke. Unity Free Will Baptist Church. Okay, so sorry. Okay, number 2. So I need a number between 1 and 10. Number 2, I want to ask you about your church's history in the area where it sits today. In other words, is your church new in the area and maybe nobody knows about it? Is it known in your area, or is it just non-existent? People. In other words, I always ask people, if I was to go a block from your church to the local gas station and ask directions to your church, or ask, I'm going to so-and-so church to preach today, would they say, oh yeah, I know that church. I know several people that go there, know the pastor. Or, what? Is that church? I've lived in this area. True story. This is before I took this job. I was, no names please, took our youth. We were on a youth mission trip to an area will be unknown. We'll not name it. We went door to door, and the guy literally on the other corner of the streets, talking across the streets. I'm talking about a few feet from the church. I've never been a pastor, don't know anything about that church. I'm talking about next door. That's bad. Okay. So what is your church's history in your area as it sits right now? Is your church known in your area? The stronger the yes is to that, the higher the number is going to be. The lower, no, we just moved and nobody knows where we're at and we're in a bad location, it would be lower. Okay. Number 3, I want to talk specifically about the location of your church. Now, it's there. You might not be able to do anything about it, but in other words, is it a high traffic area? There are cars and kids, or just crickets around your church? I mean, is your church in a place so far out that the zip code is EIEIO? I mean, you're out in the country so bad. I mean, that's a good one. I try. I go to churches, the GPS won't even get me there. Seriously. So the better the location, more people around, higher the number is going to be. And listen, you're saying, bless God, I know churches that are out in the boondocks and they got scads of people. I know that. I'm just asking, we're trying to paint a total picture here, you understand? Does not mean success or failure. I'm just asking questions. Number 4, I want to ask you about your church and how involved it is in your community. Well, we have church on Sunday. No, that's not what I asked you. I'm asking you, how often and in how many different ways do you leave the 4 walls of your church and get out and take the church to your community? By the way, can I say, it's huge. This point is huge. If you ask me about our church in our rural location and some of the keys to the growth that we had, this would be at the top of the list. When our church in 1989, with 12 people in that rural location, if it had closed that week after that meeting, nobody would have cared. All right, you fast forward. When I made the decision to take this job, I went into our school superintendent's office, sat down with her, and I'm not saying this she started crying. She said, I'm proud for you, but this is going to be devastating to our community. That church is a force. And I can tell you how I got involved in our community. I wasn't involved as a young pastor, but we had a tragedy in our community. 6 young people got in a car. It made USA Today, it made national news years ago. 7 people got in a car, 7 young people in the middle of the night, and 6 of them lost their lives on a back road on the way to Wendy's at 2 a.m. in the morning. And I can remember standing at the funeral home, and there's blocks of kids. And they always bring the preachers into the school at times. I mean, I knew a few of them that went to our church, but everybody else, I was just a guy in a suit. And I wanted a way to minister. That's how I got involved in the religious ed program. And not just that, I became the Pee Wee football announcer. I was the voice of the North Wayne Bobcats. I announced the varsity boys basketball and girls basketball and on and on and on. I'm saying, if your church closed next week, would your community know or would they care? In any way, what is your church's community involvement? Obviously, the better, it's going to be a higher number, lower. Number 5, I want to talk about the pastoral turnover in your church. The average, they say, and I've heard different, you've heard different statistics, but right now for senior pastor, I think it's about 5 years. Okay, about every 5 years, the church turns. So, based on that, is your church above average or below average? I was in a church doing an assessment. They had 18 pastors in 50 years. That's pretty high. And I'm looking, they had them on the wall. They had a wall of fame. They had all the pastors' pictures on the wall. And I recognized one of them. And I said, oh, I know Brother so-and-so. I said, how did he do here? And the guy I was talking to was Deacon. He said, well, let me tell you like this. All those other pictures up there, I put up there. I made somebody else put his picture up there. Okay? I was in another church that had 6 pastors in 40 years. That's pretty good. Then obviously you have a big personality, somebody that's been in long term. I'm a big proponent for long term, staying in one place and working it. But so what I'm saying is 18 pastors in 50 years. You can have a bad one every once in a while, but if you keep spitting them out, there's something going on somewhere. It's not good in the church. So, in other words, pastoral turnover, the lower that number is, the less pastors you've had over that would be the higher that number would be toward 10. If you have a lot of turnover in the pastoral department, that number would be lower. Number 6, I want to ask honestly to evaluate the name of your church in your community. If I was to go to City Hall, the school, down the street again, say the name of your church. Your church in your community has one of 3 names. It may have a good name. Oh, yes. Oh, dear people. Boy, they helped me out. Oh, yeah. Pastor so-and-so loving. Or your church has a bad name. Oh, yeah. I know. Bill Jones goes down there. Let me tell you something. Oh, they had a horrible... Oh, they had a knockdown drag out last week. We heard about it. Boy, oh, I know. She goes down there. If that's a Christian, I'm not, Or your church, and almost as bad as that, is no name. Nobody knows about it. Nobody. So, if your church has a good name in the community, obviously that number's higher. I want to ask you, and this is kind of closely related, number 7. I want to ask you this. Has there been any negative activity connected to the name of your church that would bring in the paper, in the news, that would bring the name of your church down? In other words, has there been like an arrest, somebody been a crime connected to your church, or somebody in leadership in your church, or a moral failure that has been widely, circulated? Again, it's not insurmountable, but it does have an effect. Again, the church with 18 pastors in 50 years, same church with the sign that said no rollerblading, skateboarding, bicycling, having fun, hadn't had a kid on the property in probably 100 years, same church. When they had young people there, one of the young people walked across the church parking lot and caught the pastor smoking dope in the church van on the church property. That would be negative activity connected to the name of the church. The man that replaced him ran off with the secretary a year later. You thought you had problems. So that would be negative activity connected to the name of the church. The more of that there is, the lower the number is. If you can't think of anything like that, higher. Number 8, I want you to think about major events in your area that have had impact on your church for the bad or the good. In other words, things not connected to your church, but in your community. In other words, I A major economic boom has come. We've got a new factory in town, and we've got 100 new jobs coming in. Or your area was voted the #1 school district that everybody wants their kids to attend. Or you have a major industry in your community that's went down the tubes and people are losing their jobs right and left. Things beyond your control that would affect how many people are there. You know, there was a housing bust and all the houses are going, being foreclosed on. Obviously, the positive things on that list would take the number higher. The negative things in the area would take the number lower. Out of your control, we're just painting a picture to see where the issues are and what we need to look at. Number 9, I want you to ask yourself, when was the last major strife in our church? I mean, a tiff, a blow-up, drama, trouble, bad businessmen, whatever. So here's how you know how to put the number down. If you're thinking right now, what's strife? I don't know. We just love each other and love Jesus, and I don't know that we've had. Well, then your number's high. If you say, "Oh, I remember. Yeah, it was back there, 2007. Man, they busted out and Deacon punched a guy out in the parking lot, and I mean, it was just, they were going to it." Then the number will be somewhat lower. Or if you say, "Boy, something's always going on. There's just trouble. I mean, we're in it right now, and then the number will be even lower." You see how this could not be so happy doing this on a local church basis? You see, it's not the funnest thing. Then number 10, I want you to think of your church. I want you to think, what do you consider the unity of the body of your church currently, right now? Is the church all on board? They're ready to go. They have a vision, or do you see it as fractured and people are not? They're not with the plan, and the one board's against another board or against the pastor. What your perception of that? Obviously, the better, the more unified, the higher the number's going to be. The less unified, the lower. So now we've went through 10 things on that list. You have 10 numbers between 1 and 10. If you would right now, just add those numbers up, and at the bottom you will come up with a total between 10 and 100. And once you add those up and get that total at the bottom, then I'm going to ask you to put that aside and we'll go to the next page. Any questions on any of those 10? Anything you need clarified? Okay. All right. And I am going to do this next part blind because I don't see my visual page. Do you have one that says aesthetics at the top? Is that the next one you got? What's it say? Just tell me what it says at the top. All right, visual exam, appearance, aesthetics. Okay. Now, after you've done your health history at the doctor, they're going to come in, the nurse, the doctor, and the first thing, before any tests are run or anything in detail is done, they're going to do a visual exam of you. Just look at you. Now, let me ask you a question. Does a visual examination always tell the whole story? No, it does not. But let me ask you this. Can you sometimes look at somebody and see that they definitely have some things going on? Do you know there's some visual signs to look at, even that you can look at to see if somebody is having a stroke? There are some things that you can have them do. And so a visual examination does not tell the whole story, but it is a very important factor in finding out the health of the patient. All right? So here's how this correlates in the church. Looks aren't everything, but they can tell a lot. And you only make a first impression once. So we are talking about the visual. We're going to look at the outside of the church before we come in. Okay? So I've got my notes, but I don't have exactly what I have a word. So give me number one. Say what does number one say? That's all. It's fine. You can keep it. You'll just do that. All right. Number one, parking. I want you to think on a scale of 1 to 10. Let me ask you the questions, and then you put a number on your church. Are the entrances clearly marked to your parking lot? Are the directions for in and out? Could a first-time visitor enter safely? Would a visitor know where to enter and exit? Is the parking lot paved? If so, is it in good condition? Are there potholes and cracks? Will a first-time visitor know how and where to park? As I referenced this morning, the demolition derby and all that. Is the parking lot striped? If so, are the stripes clear and in good condition? Do you have tire bumpers? If so, are they straight and in proper place? Are they in good condition? Is there a safe place to walk from the parking lot to the building? Is the path clear to visitors? Do you have any? So anyway, that's parking. You get the idea. So in your situation, I'm a number between 1 and 10 on what you think the condition of the parking is. All right, number 2, yell that one out.
Building exterior.
All right, the exterior of your buildings. What is the general condition of all your buildings? Is the paint peeling or in good shape? Are the colors attractive and modern? Is there clear signs pointing people to the main building entrance, the gym, or if you got a gym, pointing to the gym or Sunday school classes? I reference you back to that church. Had the restroom sign on the kids area. How are exterior hard surfaces such as sidewalks? Are they in good condition? Are there cracks in dangerous areas? Are there any flower beds? If so, are they weed-free? Are they healthy and look attractive? How does the lawn look? Is it freshly mowed and edged so it looks pristine on Sunday morning? Or is it green in season or a dying weed patch? Okay. So in other words, the church that I told you about in Alabama, where the Southern Baptists wanted to buy it because they thought it was it wasn't being used, probably, I'm guessing, the outside of the building would not get high marks if it looked like it was abandoned. So in other words, your building exterior, a number between 1 and 10 there. Number 3, signage. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
All right. Is your exterior church sign in good condition and have accurate information on it? Once a person enters the buildings, are there signs clearly posted directing visitors to the needed areas, such as the restroom and nursery? Are signs big enough and in locations where visitors can easily spot them? Are there signs directing people to Sunday school classes and the sanctuary? Do you have inappropriate signs, such as your mama doesn't work here, so clean up after yourself? Or please flush. These signs may make sense to regular people that see them every week, but how will they be seen by visitors? Is your signage current or out of date? Is it attractive and helpful? So a number between 1 and 10 on signage. Number 4, is that the foyer?
Yep.
A foyer is usually the first thing the visitor sees when entering your building. Is it inviting? Is the foyer clean? Honest to goodness, I did this, one of our first regional things. We did it in Tennessee. The next morning, I went through all this stuff. I'm going to the church. Same church where they did the dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, praise God. The offering. Covered up the offering with blankets or whatever they did. Honestly, I get there for Sunday school. There's nobody. I can't see anybody. There's a few cars. I have no idea what's going on. Honestly, here's what I thought. It was so bad. I went in the foyer. And I don't see anybody, and it's 5 minutes till Sunday school starts. I'm thinking, they heard me teach all this stuff yesterday, and they're purposely all hidden to try to make it hard for me. This is a joke. I was positive of it. That foyer, how many know some churches smell? They have the smell of 1953. It's true. And for some reason, they had pictures of past National Masters Men directories. These old black and white pictures. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever. It was scary. And I thought, this is some kind of a cruel trick they're playing on me. It's just unbelievable. And I go into the sanctuary. There's not anybody in there. There's cars out there. Somebody's got to be in this building. So I'm just standing there thinking, okay, I'm waiting for somebody to jump out and say, surprise. And finally, back behind the sanctuary, there were doors. There was a hallway back there, and somebody happens to walk by and see me. Said, "Oh, come on, preacher! We meet back here." Way back down this labyrinth of hall, everybody was in this fellowship hall, eating donuts and having a big old time. If I had been a visitor, I promise you, I wouldn't have stayed. I mean, there was nobody, nothing. So. Go back to your foyer. Is your foyer clean? How's the paint? Is it up to date and fresh? Does the paint color match the carpet tile or color? Is there some kind of a theme? Is the floor covering in good condition? Is there a welcome center or somewhere for a visitor to get information about the church? So your foyer. All right, number 5, is that classrooms? Okay. What's the general condition of all your classrooms? Walk into every classroom. You ought to evaluate, are they arranged together for easy access? Is the paint good condition? Carpeting? The lighting? Has the carpet been replaced in, say, the past 15 years or so? Are the adult classrooms decorated or are the walls blank? Are the tables and chairs in good condition? Are they comfortable? Is the temperature comfortable? Are there extra supplies available for visitors, such as Bibles, pens, Sunday school quarterlies? Are the teenagers' rooms up to date? Are they painted with teens in mind? Is the furniture comfortable? Are there for the kids, are there plenty of extra supplies, age-appropriate Bibles, pens, crayons, toys? The toys sanitized in the nursery in safe and working condition? Is the nursery in close proximity to the sanctuary and adult classrooms? Is it safe? Is the nursery clean and in good condition? Is the paint appropriate for a nursery? Would small children feel invited to come in? Would a visitor feel comfortable leaving their child in your nursery? So classrooms, just a total overview, a number between 1 and 10 on your classrooms. Number 6, your sanctuary. Is the sanctuary in good condition? Is it bright and inviting? Are the walls clean and appropriately decorated? Are the ceiling tiles in good condition and free of stains? I was in a church recently. Nice church. Great revival. They had done some wonderful work on the stage. But from the stage, even the tiles on the stage, from back, it was like 2 different. So are the pews or chairs clean, comfortable, in good condition, up to date? Are the other furnishings, and these are things sometimes we just don't think about, we don't even see. We can get so used to seeing the same thing, we really literally don't see it. Are the piano and other instruments in tune and in good working order? Does the sanctuary smell musty or have any odors? And is the seating inviting to visitors, or have regular attenders claimed seats by leaving pillows, sweaters, and other personal items in the seats? Zing. Okay. That's 6. That's the sanctuary. Number 7, the restrooms. Is each and every restroom clean and sanitary? Do they smell fresh? Are there adequate supplies such as towels, toilet paper, and other necessary items? Are the restrooms private? You have air freshener spray and exhaust fans and all that. Hot water. Are the decorations up to date? Is the floor covering clean and up to date? Are the fixtures, how are they? So just total consideration of your restrooms. Number 8, your offices. If your church offices are visible from the hallways or foyers, they need to be neat and tidy. Luckily, mine was not. It was in the back of the building. Are the offices free of clutter and look professional? Are there unnecessary things stored in offices that give them a look of a storage room instead of an office? Are they decorated appropriately? Is the floor covering up to date, clean, and in good condition? Is your phone system, answering machine, voicemail current with accurate information recorded? Your offices, between 1 and 10 in relation to your offices. Number 9, your hallways. Are the hallways open and free of clutter? Are they bright and clean? Is the paint up to date and in good condition? Is there adequate lighting? Are the walls free of holes from doorknobs? Are bulletin boards and other decorations up to date? It's amazing. The churches I go to, you'd be amazed. And nobody knows this but me. Those missionaries, the church planter, the international missions and home missions put those out. I was at a church the other day. They had one up. So help me, they had Richard Adams on it. Brother Richard gone on to be with glory a long time ago. Okay. Time to get a new one. They're free from our office. Give me your name. I'll have Teresa send you one. Monday. Number 10, and this is just kind of a catch-all for if you have a gym or storage areas or just basically a playground, carpeting, just everything else. Ask yourself, all your other, is everything, think about the paint, the lighting, if our storage area is clean and organized. Are there things stored that have not been used in the past year? If so, they should be discarded. If your church has playground equipment, is it safe? Is it up to date? Is it appropriate for different aged children? And then the floor covering and lighting for all other areas, carpeting, the ceilings, the ceiling tiles, and the lighting. Just a catch-all for everything else and a number between 1 and 10. So you now have 10 numbers between 1 and 10. At the bottom, you'll total up, you'll get a number between 10 and 100. And you can put that page aside. And that will bring an end to session number 1. We will come back. We will do the other 3 sections of this. Then we'll tally it up and say what it means and close this out. All right, we'll take a break for the next 5 to 10 minutes.